Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Today is one of the most tragic days we have had yet.
BC's deadliest day in the pandemic. COVID-19 kills another 28 people. Also,
when in doubt, rule it out.
Should Grandma come over for Christmas dinner? A plea to follow public health orders restricting household gatherings. And
you're grateful, emotional.
A former Vancouver Whitecaps and Team Canada soccer coach charged with multiple sex offenses.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. This is the deadliest day in BC's COVID-19 pandemic. The province announcing 28 people have died since yesterday's update, the most ever in a single day. 587 people in our province have now died from this virus. Cases are also up, 723 more people testing positive. BC has now crossed 40,000 total cases of coronavirus. Hospitalizations also on the rise, now sitting at 346. 83 of those patients are in critical care. Active cases also now over 9,500. And the number of people under active public health monitoring is nearly 12,000. As we said, this has been the deadliest day of the pandemic in BC so far. Eva Yugwen-Senge is with us live tonight to look at where those deaths are happening. Eva, what do we know about the 28 people who died in the last 24 hours?
Well, all but 2 of those 28 people who died were seniors in long-term care homes, mostly in the Lower Mainland, in the Vancouver coastal and Fraser Health regions. 57 long-term care facilities are currently dealing with COVID-19 outbreaks, and over 1,000 residents at those homes are infected with the virus right now. Henry says the deaths are the tragic but expected consequence of the surge in new cases that has hit the province in the last few weeks.
There are people right now in care homes who have COVID-19, and we are sending them all of our positive energy and thoughts that they will pull through this. But the reality is we know that some people will not, and that is something we're going to have to live with.
Now, yesterday, she did announce the news that staff at long-term care facilities would start getting a vaccine next week. But today, sadly, it was a reminder that those vaccinations won't help seniors who are already infected.
Yeah, that's for sure. And Dr. Henry was also asked several very specific questions in the briefing today about Christmas celebrations. What advice did she have for families trying to plan for the holidays?
Yeah, Henry says she's been inundated by requests from people outlining their specific household situations and asking if it's okay to get together, whether it's to families in separate households who want to isolate for 2 weeks before Christmas to spend the holiday together, or grandparents who have been caring for grandchildren and want to join their bubble, or people who live alone who want to visit with family. Dr. Henry wouldn't go so far as to tell people which scenario is okay and which isn't. Her advice boiled down to asking people to use their common sense.
The intent of this is to reduce those transmissions that we can have when we get together, when we have social interactions. So the bottom line is we want to, as much as possible, stick with our household.
And we heard Health Minister Adrian Dix add another one of his useful catchphrases, saying when it comes to Christmas dinner planning, when in doubt, rule it out.
All right, Eva, thanks very much. Eva Yugwen-Senge reporting live tonight. Now, one of the worst hit communities is Fort St. James in northern BC. The town of about 1,500 has at least 60 confirmed cases and 20 people now in hospital. Now, an emergency team of 4 paramedics is in place to assist local services. Their primary role will be to assist in transporting patients with COVID-19 out of the community. The team is expected to be there for 4 days. People living in the community say it's hard to isolate because of how much they rely on each other.
We are kind of in each other's bubble. It's a lot harder to be separate from people, so it does feel like we are more at risk because of that. We have 2 grocery stores and that's it, so it's just the nature of that tight living, I guess.
This is the first time the Rapid Response Team, which was created as part of our province's pandemic response efforts, has been deployed to a community. And the situation in northern BC is pushing hospitals there to their limits. For months, the situation seemed manageable, but a surge in cases has even forced the region to fly patients south. Briar Stewart has more on why the region is being hit so badly.
Look at where I am.
Harry Good documented as much of his COVID-19 ordeal as possible. At one point, he was on a ventilator, but as soon as he was conscious, he started speaking out.
Don't take it for granted.
And warning others.
I just didn't really take it too seriously because we didn't really have too much cases up here, so it didn't really feel like it was going to happen to us until it happened to me.
In the first wave of the pandemic, BC's Northern Health Region recorded very few cases of COVID-19, but that changed in mid-November. Since then, cases have been climbing steadily. The health region is huge, the population is small, just 6% of the province's total. But patients here are being hospitalized at a higher rate, and the system is strained.
The ICU itself is running at almost double its normal capacity. The actual system itself, I think, it's reaching a breaking point if we don't slow down.
A few patients were even sent to hospitals on Vancouver Island. It all left Daryl Leesky uncomfortable, encouraging people to come to his brewery. He's also a doctor and believes people should stay home, so he shut down in-person service.
I'm a physician first and a business owner second. It wasn't an easy decision. I have 50 staff. That was a really difficult decision to make.
He would like to see the province force more businesses to scale back. So do others. Some also question why large industrial sites are still operating. In Kitimat, more than 55 cases have been confirmed at the LNG Canada site.
There could be a big Christmas present further north from Dr. Henry and Mr. Dix and company. To cut them back to the bare bones maintenance, I think would make sense.
Anything to help prevent COVID from spreading even further in the north and having more patients end up in already strained hospitals. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
Dr. Bonnie Henry said today that by this time next week, the first British Columbians will be vaccinated against COVID-19. And as we learn more about the new COVID-19 vaccine, some may be hesitant about actually getting the shots. Dr. Kathleen Ross, president of Doctors of BC, wants to reassure the public about the safety of the vaccine.
These vaccines are very safe. You're not the first people in line to be taking it. We've had tens of thousands of volunteers step forward of multiple ages, including seniors, to see what are the expected side effects. Of course, all vaccines are going to have certain reactions, and we call them side effects, but really they're anticipated, expected reactions.
Dr. Ross says while this vaccine is the first of its kind, it is not based on new technology. The science behind it dates back to the 1990s and has been used to prepare vaccines for Zika, rabies, influenza, and the management of certain cancers. The federal government has failed to provide important documents for the inquiry into money laundering in BC. That according to Inquiry Commissioner Austin Cullen. Cullen released an interim report into the inquiry today. In it, he rebuked Ottawa for failing to cooperate with Commission lawyers and their attempts to access some records. The federal government oversees several agencies that play a role in combating money laundering, including the RCMP, the Canada Revenue Agency. BC Attorney General David Eby says he's particularly concerned by the apparent lack of cooperation from the intelligence agency FinTrack.
They're the ones who collect the information about large cash transactions in our province. They're the ones who connect the dots between criminal organizations and provide intelligence about what's happening, supposedly, to police and governments to help them make good decisions about how to respond with policy and laws. And they're collecting the information, we know that. They police the collecting the information, but what good is it if they won't share it with the public anti-money laundering inquiry? It makes absolutely no sense.
Eby says he's spoken to the federal public safety minister about the matter, who also shares his concerns. Ottawa is expected to soon announce changes in federal policing related to money laundering in BC. Well, police are releasing more information about the victim of a shooting in Surrey last week. 29-year-old Lisa Ellie Marie Baines was shot while driving in the 13700 block of 75A Avenue in the Newton neighborhood Thursday morning. Her mother says she was driving home from kidney dialysis at the time she was attacked. She says Ellie had a rough life as a foster child, but blossomed when she found a permanent home. She was working, taking education courses, and even appearing as a film extra, all the while dealing with her kidney disease. Her family says her death is devastating to everybody who knew her.
Now, evidence gathered to date suggests that this was an isolated incident. I know there's been many questions in the community, a lot of conjecture and rumor, and we just want to answer those today. So this was not gang-related. This was not drug-related. Again, this was an isolated incident.
Earlier, police said they didn't believe her death was a random incident. Investigators are hoping to talk to any friends and associates of Ellie Baines to help with their case. The former coach of the Vancouver Whitecaps women's soccer team has now been charged with numerous sex offenses. Bob Berarda was let go from the team more than a decade ago, but the allegations stretch back even farther. Our Dan Burritt is following the story live for us tonight. Dan, what has Berarda actually been charged with?
The Crown says he is charged with sexual assault, sexual exploitation, and child luring against 4 people. The offenses are alleged to have occurred over 20 years, between 1988 and 2008, and occurred at or near North Vancouver, West Vancouver, and Burnaby. None of the allegations have been proven in court. Now, Berarda will coach the Whitecaps and under-20 Canadian women's teams in 2007 and 2008 and was involved with Canada's Olympic women's team. It was released from the Whitecaps and the U20 squad in 2008 with little explanation, but just months later was back coaching girls at a club team in Tawasin. Last year, former women's Whitecap player Kira McCormick published a blog post alleging abusive behavior and harassment on the part of Berarda a decade earlier. She is not one of the complainants in the criminal case, to be clear. Soon after, a dozen former Team Canada players claimed Berarda had sent sexualized text messages to players, made sexual comments, and touched them inappropriately. Those allegations prompted a swift and very public backlash against the Whitecaps. Die-hard fans staged walkouts here at BC Place during games to protest the club's inaction in addressing those accusations. The club eventually apologized to the women and months later released a report in complaints against Berarda by the female players. It downplayed any wrongdoing by the club, but also found it failed to make sure Berarda followed a code of conduct. Kira McCormick says the Whitecaps and the Canadian Soccer Association still have a lot to answer for. She is thankful to the fans who took a stand.
I just want to give sort of my heartfelt gratitude to all the fans that walked out of the games, because I just don't think that, it wouldn't have gotten the traction it got if they hadn't done it. And the publicity, I think, is what allowed people to feel safe coming forward. So again.
Okay, Dan, so what are the Whitecaps or Soccer Canada saying about this?
The club released a statement this afternoon, Mike. It reads, in part, today's developments have reinforced the harm Berarda brought to women in our program when he was head coach of the women's team from 2006 to 2008. We should have been better, and for that, we are sorry. We are still waiting to hear from the Canadian Soccer Association. Bob Berarda is due back in court in late January. Mike.
Dan Burritt live at BC Place in Vancouver tonight. Thanks. A large crowd gathered in downtown Vancouver protesting agricultural laws in India. The rally comes amid mass demonstrations led by Indian farmers in New Delhi. As John Hernandez reports, the event marks the first of 5 protests planned for the coming weeks.
The day starts with a prayer, one in honor of friends and family who have taken to the streets more than 10,000 kilometers away.
Right now, the farmers in India, their rights are being violated by the new laws.
This protest on the front steps of Vancouver's Indian consulate held in solidarity with mass demonstrations in India, where hundreds of thousands have marched on New Delhi in protest of agriculture reforms.
Even though we're immigrant families, we have a very close connection to farmers. We come from farming families.
Organizer Bhupinder Kaur Bilan among those with relatives on the front lines.
My cousins back home are walking and standing 24/7 in the cold weather, no heaters, no sun, and they're still trying to stand up for the rights.
Opponents say India's new agriculture laws that deregulate crop pricing could devastate farmers' already slim incomes. Nearly 60% of India's population rely on the sector.
It would make them merciless to huge corporations, and their crops would be sold at prices that would basically demolish their livelihood.
While days of unrest have erupted into violent clashes between police and protesters.
They've been tear gassed, they've been water cannoned, and they've been met with aggressive force.
This protest in Vancouver coinciding with International Human Rights Day, organizers calling on the Indian government to repeal laws and pull back forces. The mounting conflict, an uneasy reminder of anti-Sikh riots more than 3 decades ago when thousands were killed.
The brutality, the cruelty that it shows, massacres of its own people, of its own Islamists, and I think that's what we're afraid. We don't want 1984 repeating again.
4 more rallies are planned through the rest of the month in Vancouver. Continued pleas for peace and justice. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, the next time you grab some fast food, there's a good chance the paper it's wrapped in could be made in Port Alberni on the island. That is where the company Paper Excellence says it is investing $13 million in its paper mill to manufacture food-grade products, securing hundreds of jobs for local workers.
A tremendous shot in the arm for the community. Means that 310 employees at the mill here will be looking forward to their Christmas and holiday and their new year.
Paper Excellence says it has been working for more than 2 years to prove it can develop the food-grade products at the mill. It's still making publication-grade paper for magazines and ad inserts, but that demand has declined while the market for food-grade paper is growing. The company expects the upgrades to be complete towards the end of next year. Well, some American politicians want to terminate a cross-border treaty that regulates flow of the Columbia River. The Columbia River Treaty was signed by the two countries over a half-century ago. 4 huge dams were built to prevent flooding and generate billions of dollars worth of electricity. Some parts of the treaty expire in 2024, and negotiators in Canada and the U.S. have been working on a renewed deal for over 2 years. But American Congressman Daniel Newhouse wants it terminated while Donald Trump is still president. The American resolution is expected to be introduced to American Congress any day now, and if passed, could in part end 60 years of cross-border management of a river. Speaking of rivers, Johanna Wagstaffe here now. The atmospheric river finally gone, but and boy, it was dry today for the most part.
Yeah, we even saw the sun peek through for a few moments this afternoon. Increasing cloud, though, before we lost the sun tonight, and showers are getting ready to cross back over. Not a river, just a few pinwheeled showers. Let me show you the current temperatures out there right now. There was a crispness to the air today, you might have noticed. 5 right now at YVR, a different air mass once we got behind that atmospheric river that really brought us a warm couple of days. So this is the current system. We've got a low pressure system sitting off the offshore of Haida Gwaii. It's directing in this area of low pressure, and the rain is just moving into Victoria right now. So I think we still got a couple of hours before that makes its way across to the lower mainland. I think this model is doing a pretty good job of picking it up. So taking you through the late evening hours, that's when we'll see those showers pick up and snow for the local mountains. As you can see, right through to Friday mid-morning, still a chance of lingering showers for Metro Vancouver. But then as I keep this running through Friday afternoon, dramatic clearing. I love a good Friday afternoon drama in the clouds, and that's exactly what we will get. And I think we can keep it going until most of Saturday as well. So a nice little break coming up. Just get through some Friday morning showers. We'll be rewarded with some sunshine that should stick around for the first half of the weekend before another pattern change. I will bring you all the details coming up. But another sort of special event taking place tonight, probably much more important than the showers. It's the first night of Hanukkah. The 8-day winter festival of lights, and those of the Jewish faith will be celebrating by lighting the first candle on the menorah tonight. Of course, usually with friends and family.
Yes, but this year, people of the Jewish faith have found a way to celebrate while still apart.
We're going to have a large screen in front of the legislature, and on it we're going to project everyone lighting menorah in their home.
Usually hundreds in Victoria's Jewish community gather for song, dance, and prayer to light the menorah in Centennial Square. Hanukkah is its most basic, a celebration of the triumph of light over darkness, the burning candle, a symbol of hope, reminding everyone this holiday season, no matter what faith you believe in, to bring light to our homes, communities, and to anyone every day.
Good message for everyone today. And another holiday to mark. That's what's happening this weekend. And like so many others, it's going virtual as well in order to protect its community.
And as our Zara Premji explains tonight, that is the case for the Ismaili community as it celebrates a milestone for the community virtually.
Now we're going to take our right leg and go back.
From exercise classes to arts and crafts to informative webinars, life hasn't stopped for the Ismaili Muslim community. It's just gone virtual. And for Shirin and Shiraz Chatur, that's a good thing too, because they wouldn't know how to celebrate His Highness the Aga Khan's 84th birthday otherwise.
It's part prayer and part celebrating, but it is a very, one of the most important days of the year.
Feeling a bit sad that we can't meet with our friends, that we can't hug and kiss them.
But a virtual option has helped pull thousands like the Chatur family out of isolation, creating a celebration online for nearly 15,000 Ismailis in the province and 100,000 in the country.
It makes up for what we're missing.
On December 13th, for decades, the members of the global Ismaili community, like the Chaturs, have come together physically to celebrate their spiritual leader's birthday.
We usually celebrate this occasion at the Jamaat Khana, the mosque, and it's a very festive celebration. It means a lot to me.
Thank you for taking the time, for sharing your passion.
But now, like everything else, the pandemic means that's had to change, and it's gone online.
Virtual programming going to be beamed into our community, not only in BC, but across Canada and really throughout the world, where there are going to be musical performances, there's going to be arts and crafts that take place to engage those families who have young ones at home so that they can still interact and not feel like that they're missing something.
Hundreds of volunteers have put their expertise to work across the country for the 3-day virtual celebration, from filming and editing to cooking classes and more, all with one aim, connecting globally, even if virtually.
Having this virtual program not only is our ability to bring them in and feel that connectedness and remind them we're all in this together, we're one community.
The Chathurs say the virtual celebration is certainly giving them hope in an otherwise bleak time.
I am looking forward to the whole weekend because it's not like we're going to get totally bored with nothing to do.
While it's unknown just how long the pandemic will last, what is known is the Ismaili community says it's going to continue its online programming that you can access on the apps, on the phone, on the iPad, on your computer, just about anywhere for big celebrations like December 13th. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
And a reminder, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. It is one of the unique challenges about the Pfizer vaccine, how teams are working to keep it at a downright chilly minus 70 degrees Celsius. That's next. And thanks for being with us online during the TV commercial break. Well, they are two Syrian sisters with a shared love of art who found a way to use their passion to help others. They came to Canada as refugees a year ago. They began creating drawings depicting life in the refugee camp. This year, during the pandemic, they had time to further cultivate their skills, turning their drawings into postcards to raise awareness and funds for those struggling back in their home country. Kelda Yuan has more.
We left Syria when I was 4 years old, and it was tremendously hard for me to see destruction in front of my eyes because our home was being destroyed. I honestly do not remember anything except the fear that when the bombs came crashing our land, and I got so scared when I heard the bombs.
Sidra and Shahed El-Shamali escaped to Turkey with their family, and in 2016 they arrived in Toronto as refugees.
How did it feel when you first got here?
I felt that this is the place that we're gonna live our life in happily, and I felt like that everybody was really welcoming and really nice. And even though Canada is very cold, the love and the hope that was spread by the people here made us feel very warm. And this made me feel very wanting to help others.
They are doing that through art, creating pieces on canvas depicting the lives of Syrian children living in refugee camps.
Elegant Art, that's our project name. It was our passion to draw. We wanted to share how people are suffering in our country. The idea started of us seeing those Syrian children who are suffering, and we felt like if we found the place that we feel safe in, we can't just forget about those who are left behind. This is about kids dreaming of things they're not capable of getting, like hats or teddy bears, and they're hoping that they can get to a point where they'll be able to get those things.
In May, the sisters joined forces with Cute Roots cards to turn their drawings into plantable postcards.
Here we have a picture of a girl holding her teddy bear. She has hope that everything will get better.
Proceeds from sales of the postcards go towards supporting Moham Team, a relief organization that helps displaced Syrians.
This is about two kids trying to get warm by the fire because it's very cold. This is in winter.
When you think about those who are back there who are suffering, how does that make you feel?
I feel so sad because they're suffering and we're just here living in peace. Those children want to live their childhood playing and having fun, but instead are having to see the dark side of the world at a young age and having to suffer. The pandemic gave us a chance to develop talents we didn't have time to develop in regular days. We hope we can inspire others to take action because I believe that children can make a change.
And we're back with more news in just a sec. Stay right here. The United States took a major step tonight towards approving a COVID-19 vaccine. A government advisory panel voted to endorse use of the Pfizer vaccine. Of course, the U.S. faces the same monumental task as Canada of delivering the vaccine. Susan Ormiston shows us how small players are helping perfect the so-called cold chain of delivery on both sides of the border.
Dry ice is suddenly hot. One critical element in distributing the first vaccines, which have to be moved and stored hyper cold.
So, Reggie, how is this part of the pandemic?
We understand that the Pfizer vaccine needs to be at 94 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. Dry ice is 109 degrees below zero.
So who will be your customers for this?
Mainly pharmacies, shippers like couriers, and the hospitals.
The Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine will come to Canadians from Belgium and to Americans from U.S. plants. It ships frozen in vials of 5 doses each. Special thermal shippers will carry it on planes. Once delivered, Canada has purchased 26 ultra-low temperature freezers, but where that isn't in place, dry ice can supplement.
At this point, many of them aren't sure exactly on the details of what they're doing. They just know they're going to need dry ice at some point.
When liquid carbon dioxide is tightly compressed, it turns the gas into solids. Not new, the polio vaccine back in the 60s was delivered in dry ice boxes.
So much of this cold chain is time sensitive. This dry ice can keep that vaccine at cold enough levels, but it does evaporate. So on a regular basis, it will have to be replaced.
Once a vial is defrosted, ready for injection, it has only a 6-hour life.
So it's not like you can then store the vial again and use it the next day. It is a challenge. I mean, the world essentially has never undertaken something like this on this scale.
Within days, remarkably, These vaccines will be on the move.
Did you ever think you'd be making dry ice for a vaccine that could save the world?
Never thought of it. It's just an amazing thing that has changed, and we're glad that we can help.
Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Washington.
Canada's premiers are calling on the federal government to increase its annual health care funding. They brought it up today at a virtual meeting with the Prime Minister, but say he wasn't willing to discuss the issue.
He said that it's premature to discuss that right now. And of course, as you know, the next budget is March or April. So we need, and we've asked for another meeting end of January or beginning of February, and he refused.
Quebec's premier there, speaking to reporters, their demand of a 22 to 35% increase would amount to $28 billion. They say this boost is needed to meet rising costs created by an aging population and new medical technologies and drugs. Ottawa is scheduled to transfer close to $42 billion to the provinces this year. Wildfire victims in Fort McMurray are watching an American court case very closely. An Alberta builder made a brief appearance in a California court today. He is facing numerous charges related to his dealings with wildfire victims in that state. Katie Nicholson spoke with some of his former clients in Alberta who were dealing with lawsuits of their own.
That's not up to code.
1 year after they gave us a tour, Bill and Carrie Pendergast are still tied up in legal action with the man they say botched the rebuild of their Fort McMurray home.
We can't sell our house, we can't move. We can't do much other than incur more legal fees.
When I had showed up.
But in February, they got a surprise call from California.
The first thing I done was, check online to make sure that this guy is legit.
It was a state investigator looking into Canal Nagpal, the Pendergast's former builder. In 2017, fire devastated Santa Rosa, California. Nagpal went south to offer his services.
I have background in finance.
But, like in Fort McMurray, there were soon complaints. And in October, he was charged with misrepresentation and contracting without a license. If found guilty, he could face thousands in fines, even prison time.
I think the DA is treating this case quite seriously.
California has strict rules governing the construction world and stiffer penalties when disaster victims are involved.
No one is interested in leaving folks who have been struck by disaster to be hit by another disaster, a human-made disaster.
In an email to CBC News, Nagpal says the charges were based on technical issues and that his intention was always to assist people.
Everything here is soaking wet.
The Pendergasts are happy their former builder has been charged. Swift action in California has them frustrated with Alberta.
Our Consumer Protection Act is negligible. It's so minimal. People don't realize until you need it. Then you find out that it's really not there for you.
Alberta's Consumer Protection Office confirms it exchanged compliance information with Nagpal's company, but there is no record of any enforcement. Last year, the province launched 3 new consumer protection initiatives, all too late to help the Pendergasts, who've already spent thousands in their battle for justice. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, today marks 2 years since Canadians Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor were detained by China. Ottawa has clarified earlier reports that the 2 Michaels had been tried and convicted by Chinese officials. Apparently that has not happened. The confusion was caused by a translation error. But as Evan Dyer tells us, that'll come as little comfort to either family as calls grow for Canada to take a stronger stance.
It is taking a toll. This has been an incredibly challenging 2 years for him and for all of us out here who are fighting for his freedom.
For 2 years, Bina Najibullah has campaigned tirelessly, not only for her own husband, but also for Michael Spavor. And yet, freedom seems no closer.
And we will continue to do whatever we feel gives the best chance of bringing them home.
We would have looked to work with the United States and other countries on a Magnitsky sanction approach.
Magnitsky sanctions target individuals. Today, a European human rights group delivered a legal brief to Global Affairs Canada that argues for just that approach and names 2 Chinese officials as potential targets. Peter Dahlin heads Safeguard Defenders. He's a Swede who was himself detained in China in 2016.
I only spent a little bit less than a month inside a suicide-padded cell in southern Beijing in a facility that is probably the same facility where Michael Kovrig was kept for his first 166 days of disappearance.
As a former prisoner himself, Dahlin is sensitive to arguments that a tougher approach could end up hurting the detainees, but he doesn't believe it will.
Or diplomatic pressure improves the treatment inside in every single known case. So the idea that quiet diplomacy would ensure better treatment inside for the two Michaels is simply not true.
Deploying Magnitsky sanctions, however attractive it may be, to strike back. If you're targeting the very people involved in the detention, to expect those same people who are going to be in power to then cooperate is maybe a wishful thinking.
But there's no sign of any end to their ordeal. And today, Chinese officials said that even the release of Meng Wanzhou in Canada would do nothing to affect their situation. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
The death toll from COVID-19 has surged in the past couple of months. Coming up, the heartbreaking tale of one couple dying apart.
Last week, new figures were released showing Canada's population is now more than 23.5 million, with most of us living in the big cities. This trend is putting a bigger strain than ever before on our cities, forcing municipal leaders to respond. This week, CBC national reporters from across the country will be looking at the problems and the plans of downtown Canada at the ways our biggest cities have adapted to the 70s. First, Colin Hoth reports on Vancouver, where plans for a convention center on the waterfront herald a new wave of development.
The high-rise building boom of the 60s that created Vancouver's modern skyline came to an end 3 years ago. City planners say they've used that breathing space to draw up some new development rules that will hopefully mold the style of Vancouver in the 80s.
Attempted to achieve much more attention to the human being out on the street, walking around in the downtown, to make it a much more enjoyable place, to emphasize the fact that we wanted the sun not to be blocked off on the streets, that we wanted people both within the buildings and outside the buildings to enjoy themselves much better, to have a better time when they go to work. Ranging from examples that we give people bonuses for providing health facilities, lunchrooms, and other social recreation facilities within buildings, and we give them bonuses for doing a good development that's neighbourly with the rest of the buildings on the street and provides sunlit places for the brown bag people to be able to sit in the lunch hour and enjoy the passing traffic.
The new provincial courthouse complex, running 3 full blocks in the very heart of the city, is emerging as a focal point for much of the impending new development. Some of the commercial developments on the drawing boards incorporate apartment complexes, further extending the existing blend of residential and office development, which keeps Vancouver's downtown core alive even outside of office hours. The plan to build a $200 million convention center here on the waterfront is promoted as another aid to development of a lively and prosperous city center. Planners admit the new wave of downtown development will inevitably accentuate the city's traffic and parking problems as more and more suburban commuters struggle to get in and out of the peninsula on which the central core is located. Pressure is mounting for an early decision to make a start on the often discussed rapid transit system. The availability of these old railway rights-of-way through the suburbs offer the prospect of building the first stage for as little as $200 million. But the aftershock from California's Proposition 13 still ripples up the coast, and there is taxpayer resistance. But planners insist it's the kind of bold investment that Vancouver is going to have to make one day if it is to achieve its potential as possibly the most exciting urban center in the North American continent. Colin Holt, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that's the National for this Christmas Day, Monday, December the 25th. I'm Knowlton Nash. Good night.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Really happy that
other people have been empowered to come forward, and hopefully will have, their voices heard and have a chance to start healing after their day in court.
Whistleblower and former Vancouver Whitecaps player Kira McCormack says she was shocked to hear that a former Vancouver Whitecaps and Team Canada women's soccer coach has been charged with several sex offenses. McCormack is not a complainant in the case, but she did bring the story to light in a blog post last year. Bob Berarda has been charged with several sex offenses against 4 individuals. None of the allegations has been proven in court.
It's going to be a different Christmas this year, and where there's an option for the protection of the ones you love and the protection of everybody else, this is not the time to gather.
Health Minister Adrian Dix is urging British Columbians to stay apart over the holidays in an effort to prevent a surge of new cases of COVID in the new year. He and Dr. Bonnie Henry are pleading with people to resist temptation and follow the provincial health orders when it comes to restrictions on household gatherings.
And all but 2 of these people are elders and seniors who were in long-term care homes in various places across BC.
BC health officials announcing 723 new cases of COVID-19 today and 28 more deaths, the highest number of deaths in a 24-hour period since the start of this pandemic. All but 2 of the people who died today were residents of long-term care homes. As we've heard, the pandemic is taking a toll every day in our province as infection rates rise. It can be kind of easy to forget that those rising numbers represent people. CBC's Yvette Bren brings us a story of a beloved Ismaili couple who spent 66 years together only to be split apart in their final days.
Salia Ramtula traveled from Toronto to Burnaby this week. She's come to say goodbye to her grandmother and her grandfather. Hassanli and Shah Sultan Ramtula were married in Tanzania when she was 18. They had 3 sons and were together for more than 60 years, proud of their 5 grandchildren.
She was just the sweetest kind of soul. He was a little bit more shrewd, a little bit reserved. He would always wear a blazer, and she was the opposite, always in like florals and colorful and baking and wanting to say hi to everyone. And I think she was the softness, making them like the perfect balanced pair. They were fine just a month ago.
But then COVID hit both of them.
She started feeling ill mid-November. The symptoms she described was like a terrible headache as well as a stomach ache.
The grandmother was taken to Royal Columbian Hospital. Days later, her husband was in Burnaby Hospital.
I was just devastated. I mean, you hear about it all the time and you look at the numbers going up, but it's totally different when it's someone that is in your own family.
On Sunday, the grandchildren FaceTimed with their grandmother for 2.5 hours.
There's no sense of touch because you can't hold the person, but hopefully she could hear us, and I think she could. She would nod, and the last word she did say to us was that she loved us so much, and yeah. Then my mom calls me again, and I pick up, and she's like, "You won't believe this. He passed away too." I am not even surprised. Like, he's such a gentleman waiting for her before he decided to go too.
She says with that, after 66 years together, they were gone. A bittersweet end to a couple she believes reunited in death. Yvette Bren, CBC News, Vancouver.
When you think of the discovery of a new species, you might think small, perhaps an ant, a grasshopper, a bird. But a whale is on the list of a new species. Details on this huge discovery coming up. And at 6:43, there's a live look at Cypress Mountain tonight. Quite a bit of snow up on the local mountains for the skiers and boarders, and some good news, there's more on the way. Johanna has both your alpine and sea level forecasts next.
Hi, I'm Dan Murphy from Silver Bell Christmas Tree Farm in Springvale. These are my top 5 tips of what you should be doing and looking for in a Christmas tree. Tip number 1, if you're buying your tree off a lot as a pre-cut tree, be sure to check for freshness. And you do that by grabbing onto a branch and lightly pulling towards you. If you have needles pulling out of the stem, as opposed to breaking off, but pulling out, you have a dry tree and stay away from it. Tip number 2, whether you're buying a pre-cut tree off a lot or you've cut a tree down yourself, if the tree has been cut for more than 3 or 4 hours, take a fresh cut a minimum of 1 inch off the bottom so that the tree will take up water again like it should. Tip number 3, make sure your tree never runs out of water by checking it every day. You'd never want a tree to run dry of water. Tip number 4, always keep your tree away from a direct heat source such as a radiator or a wood stove. Tip number 5, recycle your tree either through Waste Watch or donate it to a goat farmer. The goats love them. If you follow these tips, your tree should easily last from now in through New Year's. And we'll wish you a happy holidays from us here at Silver Bell Christmas Tree Farm in Springvale.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Stream your favorite CBC dramas or comedies 24/7 on demand on the CBC Gem app. Plus, you can live stream CBC Vancouver News. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates. Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Well, researchers believe they have found a new species of whale off the Pacific coast of Mexico. It's a type of beaked whale known for having dolphin-like snouts. Scientists came across the unusual specimens earlier this month while investigating an unidentified underwater signal. What they saw surprised them.
It became clear we didn't see Perrin's beaked whale. We saw something new. Something that was not expected in this area, something that doesn't match, either visually or acoustically, anything that's known to exist.
Scientists took water samples in the vicinity for further analysis. DNA testing is now underway in order to try to prove that theory. Joe's here now. Who knew? Maybe there should be a naming contest for this new species once they find out more about it.
I like that. Yeah, something like Moby Beak.
Moby
That's
Beak.
gonna be my first guess.
Brilliant.
I'm just throwing it out there.
That's the winner. It's got to be the winner.
Yeah, very cool though. Yeah, hiding in plain sight, clearly. We've got some showers, not so hidden. They're crossing the strait as we speak. Take a look at the temperatures though across the country to start with. We've had a crisp day behind that warmer air mass that kicked us off this week. A 5 right now in Vancouver, 1 for Kelowna, expecting snow tonight in through the Okanagan. Seasonal temperatures across the prairies, and we had some snow today for Toronto as well. But taking you through the radar, you can see temperatures are dropping a little bit in through Metro Vancouver, 3s and 4s just across the strait, and those showers just wrapping around through Port Renfrew, heading into Victoria in the next hour or so, and then making their way across Metro Vancouver later this evening. I'm thinking after 10. As far as rainfall totals go, generally just a 5 to 10 millimeter story. But for the local mountains, this is going to transition translate to 10 to 15 centimeters overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. Grouse, Cypress, and Seymour looking to get the 10 to 15 centimeter start. There's that front tracking inland, bringing the snow to the Okanagan as well. It clears out quite quickly, though. Just pausing you tomorrow evening. Look at that lovely little break. So I think we'll see some of the sunshine, as I mentioned earlier, tomorrow afternoon, lingering through Saturday as we sit between two systems. But then the next front will approach, and you can just see that strong cold front off to the Pacific there. That's what will bring the rain for Sunday, Monday, and it looks like through Tuesday and Wednesday as well. A quick look at the province tomorrow. We've got some sunshine in places that haven't seen it in a while. I'm looking at you, Prince Rupert, Terrace, Stewart, and a beautiful Friday lingering into Saturday before that front gets to you. A few flurries for Cranbrook and the Kootenays. Kelowna, as I mentioned, 2 to 5 centimeters. That's picking up overnight tonight. And flurries, the story, and through the central interior, the Peace, looking to get some sunshine in the afternoon. So breaking down the long-range forecast, that Saturday does look good. Hoping to see some sunny breaks tomorrow afternoon after those morning showers. Temperatures will be a little cooler as we head into the weekend. This is about our seasonal, though. It has been a mild and wild start to the fall, the late fall season, but temperatures will be coming back down to our seasonal as we head into the weekend. Looks like increasing cloud for Saturday late afternoon. We should get by with a mainly sunny day. Showers through all of your Sunday and into Monday and into Tuesday. But I think by next week, we can start to hone in on the 25th. So we're getting closer.
All right. Well, you are at home there, honing in. Your ornaments look lovely and behind you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, especially this one, right?
Exactly. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
It is the first night of Hanukkah, and the BC Legislature's menorah was lit up tonight, but it's not a holiday as usually we do because of the pandemic, so you could be forgiven if you indulged in an extra sufganiyat tonight. What is it? It's a tasty treat. We're going to show it to you next.
It's just a really magical, special time of the year. We originally started this as something that we could use for our own family and for our friends, and it grew very quickly into something that we realized we could share with a lot of people. In a year like 2020, COVID-safe activities like Sparkle Tour are really important. We, as a society, we haven't had a lot of normalcy this year. And what Sparkle Tour does is it's something that is completely the same as it's been for these families year after year. There's some awesome, great displays out there in Regina, and I know there are elsewhere. But for us, really, the biggest surprise has been the amount of attention we're getting so far on the website, the amount of traffic we're seeing. For example, this year, we've got 381 addresses on the map, and that's one of our best years ever, going back to many years before we first started. We've got 25 different communities. I don't believe we've ever had 25 communities on the map in 1 year. It really shows to me how excited people are about Christmas this year, and how excited they are to go out and have an activity like this that they can do.
Things seen while walking or scootering in River Heights. Cat on a roof, 35 squirrels and 50 rabbits. Chinese food being delivered to Queenston School. Do the custodians live at Queenston School? Investigation to follow.
She's a very social person and loves interacting with people, and she just thought it would be a great idea to be able to get out of the house. And so she wrote this newsletter, and she delivers it all around the neighborhood. It's been a nice bringing together of community for sure for us.
Recipes, crafts, interviews, codes, games, advice column. People send in messages about what they need to know or something, and then I respond to them in my newsletter. I tell people about what I do and how I do it, like teaching them how to do a handstand.
Hattie likes to create little investigations of the neighborhood, and she keeps us all up to date, and they're really funny and super thoughtful.
People look forward to the newsletter, and when we see people out in the neighborhood, they ask when the next issue's coming, or when we started the advice column, all kinds of people came and delivered notes to the mailbox for Hattie to give advice on, and so that was really fun to just see the community come together and participate.
I want to be a farmer, I want to be an author, I want to be a reporter, I want to be a detective, and I want to be a spy.
Sure, fried dough can't fix everything this year, but it might make you forget about it for a moment.
Yes, sufganiyot, or jelly-filled donuts, are a popular dessert for Hanukkah. Although the holiday will look different this year, sufganiyot is a pandemic-friendly tradition, delicious both hot from the fryer or at room temperature for a physically distanced porch drop-off.
Our GP Mendoza and Andrea Ross dipped in to look at their significance for the Jewish community.
We take a piece and blessing the dough. Thousands of years ago, when there used to be the temple, we used to give this one to the poor people to do food for them.
The reason we have jelly donuts at Hanukkah is actually really has to do with them being a fried food, that we traditionally eat lots of different foods that are cooked in oil. So sufganiyot is one example, as well as things like potato latkes, potato pancakes. They're also just delicious, and it's a good excuse to eat donuts. We eat them because the oil brings us back to the original story of Hanukkah. We commemorate 8 days of Hanukkah, 8 nights of lighting our menorah, as well as 8 days of eating lots of oily, delicious foods.
Which is your favorite? My favorite, the simple one. Simple one that's with jam. That's my favorite. My kids, my wife, they like chocolate, they like different custard cream.
In Israel, they have become such an important part of kind of the broader celebration of Hanukkah. But now there are these incredible gourmet donuts that pop up, and I feel like every year the bakeries in Israel try to one-up each other to make the most incredible and creative types of sufganiyot.
And then I celebrate with, usually without the pandemic, with friends and family. On this pandemic, I have to celebrate only with my family. We light the candle every day, one more, for 8 days. We have a dinner and a nice shot.
Our tradition says that we're supposed to put our menorahs in our windows. And I think that this year especially, I think there's a lot of beauty, and I think maybe a lot of comfort in that idea of, even though we're kind of restricted to our own homes and the people that are living in our homes, that we're still putting out our light into the world, and that, as we light our candles each night during Hanukkah, that we're kind of connecting to everyone who's out there.
What do you think, Joe? Sufganiyot for dinner, maybe?
Yeah, well, I think GP and Andrea got the best story of the entire show.
No kidding. My favorite is jelly. No, chocolate. No, cream-filled. No, the one with the icing
marshmallows
sugar
on
on
top.
it.
I'll take anyone.
There you go. Thanks, Joe. Thank you for watching. Dan Burt's here at 11 o'clock, right after the National. Have a great night.
Good night.